Enabling real-time endpoint visibility with osquery. Now, what does that mean? Well, there are many things in our personal lives that happen in real time. For instance, I can check the weather, I can download a podcast before I take the dog for a walk, or I can even order a burrito and have that delivered in 30 minutes. But the enterprise is lagging behind, and I will talk about how we can use osquery to move the enterprise forward. My name's Erin Palmer, and I'm the Director of Endpoint Security at Comcast. I spoke last year at osquery at Scale Conference about how we selected to use osquery, and we spent much of 2020 deploying agents to our Linux environment. In 2021, we have many use cases that we will be implementing, and I'll talk about some of them here. My team's primary focus is to provide our threat hunters and our incident responders with the best information possible. And osquery allows us to do that along with facilitating other areas of the business. Visibility. Now, visibility is defined as the state of being seen. So what does that mean for cybersecurity? Well, as we are able to see servers within the environment, we're able to learn more information about them. And as we move to our zero trust architecture, we're able to establish trust. Why is visibility important? Well, there's a handful of areas that have come up over the last year that I think osquery has really helped us with visibility. The first is identifying assets. With the increase of virtual machines and cloud, we have been unable to track how many assets are really on our network. And since osquery is an easily deployed agent, we have gained adoption throughout the enterprise in new teams. And so now we're able to track their assets. Secondly, we can now query what's going on those assets. So we can identify if it's a Linux host, what version it's running, and get a lot of information directly from the endpoint where we didn't have visibility before. And also, we are able to maybe discover what other agents are out there. We are also able to detect threats directly on the endpoint. This is new as in this environment, we typically would see the threats only at the network layer, but now we can see it at the endpoint. We are also able to query our entire network. So being in cybersecurity, you know that we can get asked anything at any time. And being able to query our network to see what information is out there is a great help. We can also understand how our applications work. So we now have visibility from a cybersecurity perspective as to what a server is doing, how an application runs, and we're able to look at past data in our data lake to see if this is normal activity or if something has changed. We also are giving visibility to the application owners to be able to see how their applications work. Many times applications move from one owner to another, and the new owner just simply doesn't know all the things that it takes to run their application. So they now have network layer information to look at. This also helps as architecture changes happen, moving from, let's say, a data center to the cloud. They now know what network connectivity is needed. And lastly, we use visibility to establish trust. As we move to zero trust architecture, we need to be able to establish trust with both our devices and our users. Having the osquery visibility gives us knowledge as to what a server is doing, and also if a user or service account is running commands that they typically don't run. And we can use that information to establish trust. As in 2020, as we worked to deploy osquery across the enterprise, we really had to get organized. So the first thing we did was set up a wiki and a SharePoint to educate our owners. This was a place for people to go to understand our architecture, who were members of our team, and we added FAQs here. So there were questions that kept coming up, and we added them to our wiki. We also set up collaboration channels on Teams and Slack so that users could ask us questions, check in on their agent deployments, and it also creates a forum for users to understand osquery better and adopt it further. We also set up help sessions with about 300 users. We met twice a week, and at the beginning there were over 100 attendees on those calls, and as the weeks went on, there were only a handful, and so we knew that we had educated our owners. Next, we needed an ops plan. So we wanted to make sure that our systems were running, that we were monitoring was in place, and that our new owners could trust that we were running our osquery and there were no issues. We also made a plan to contact all of these new owners for upgrades so that as upgrades are needed, we have a way to reach out to them and let them know that either we would push a change out to their systems or that they needed to take action. And lastly, we needed to track progress. So we had to stay organized. We needed to tag our assets to track ownership and what application they were a member of, and also report by owner. If you can't report on it, it never happened. We realized last year that as we deployed the osquery agents, we really had to tell people how many agents had been deployed by business unit. We couldn't just tell them that 1,000 agents got deployed, but we had to be able to tell them who deployed the agents and how much coverage each team had. This changes the story, and we've really put a lot of focus on reporting on the business unit going forward. As we collect this information, we can also grant teams access to osquery to further the adoption there. In real time. So in real time means that we move from running reports and waiting for other teams to get back to us to getting the data at our fingertips. And osquery is helping us do that. Cybersecurity questions have answers quickly. For instance, how many endpoints are there? This question was hard to answer. We knew that there were endpoints out there, but we didn't exactly know what they were running. So now that we have osquery visibility there, we can say that we have a certain number of Linux hosts, and we also are looking from a discovery standpoint to be able to see what else might be out there. Where is this package installed? So there might be a news article that comes out, and all of a sudden people are asking how Comcast is impacted. So we need to be able to run a query and see where that package is installed. Across a large environment, that is not as easy as it may seem. But now that we have one agent across multiple teams, we can get that information back quickly. What version of that DLL are we running? So if there's a new 0-day and all of a sudden people need to know what version of a DLL is running, we now don't have to go to a Windows team and wait for them to run a report, but we can get that information back right away. Did this finding get resolved? In our cybersecurity program, there are many teams that create security findings. We have our vulnerability team, our configuration compliance team, our architecture team, we have a vulnerability department. And so users are frequently tracking down findings and then working to resolve them. And our owners have to research the findings, see how it will, the resolution, see how it will impact their application. Typically, they aren't the people that implement the change, so now they have to open a ticket and wait for that work to get done. And then after all that is done, they come back to the security team and ask, did we resolve that finding? We are working with osquery to make this more of a self-service option. So users will be able to answer this question themselves. And they can put that evidence directly into a ticket and resolve the finding. Another question we get asked is who has access to this server or how much privilege access is out there? And that is a difficult question to ask across a diverse environment. Using osquery, we can look at the local user configurations across our Linux environment and user group that are on a Windows host and create a report that shows all the privilege access across both our Windows and Linux environment. Now, all those questions that we were asked on the last slide could have been solved by another agent. but our team is working to put APIs to good use and stop deploying more agents. And this is really going to let teams focus on what they're supposed to focus on rather than focusing on managing agents. And our endpoint security team has the expertise to manage the agents that we do need out there. And this will really facilitate other teams to do more with their time. osquery has let us shorten our remediation time. We no longer need to wait for a new scan, and we no longer need to wait for another team to run a report. We are giving users self-service to be able to remediate things on their own. This will free up time for the security team to focus on other things. So I have gone over a few ways that we are enabling real-time endpoint visibility with osquery. And I really look forward to all the progress that we will make in 2021. Thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions or feedback.